Hi, I'm Anna Jordan, and I'm going to attempt to make a brief, succinct, and impactful video on smashing through writer's block. How can you get rid of writer's block? How can you work through writer's block? And I'm going to do that with 6 points. The first of these is the most powerful way to get rid of writer's block is to deny it exists at all. And I know that might sound a bit of a contradiction, but the reason I don't like the term writer's block and I don't use it is because the idea of being blocked or unblocked just gives you a choice of these two states, right? You're either blocked or unblocked. You're blocked, nothing's happening at all. You're unblocked and it's all fine and dandy. And I think that's way too binary thinking for a creative person, for any person, because we're all creative. But I also think it sort of really takes your power away, because if you believe you need to move from this state of being blocked to being unblocked, there's this extraordinary pressure on the moment of unblocking. And I think that causes tension, causes stress. If you're a superstitious writer at all, like I am, you can have all sorts of weirdness and anxiety surrounding when is my unblocking moment going to come? Is it today? I think writer's block is quite a sort of old-fashioned term, and I'm not sort of belittling it, because it's frightening and upsetting when you're trying to work on something, or you're simply trying to write, and you feel you can't. That's really frightening. I understand that. But I tend to talk about I'm struggling with the project. I'm finding something challenging. I'm trying to work through it. And like, struggling isn't like a kind of positive term, but it suggests that I am taking some action, that I'm moving through it. So in Peter Pan, every time someone says, I don't believe in fairies, a fairy dies somewhere. So let's come together and say, I don't believe in writer's block. And then hopefully writers all over the world will be getting unblocked as we say that. So that's my first point. My second point is change your project. So I understand that makes assumptions that you're working on more than one project at the same time. I don't really mean that, but I'll explain. Of course, you might have a deadline and you might be coming towards that deadline, and you might be like, I can't just switch and work on a different play or book or film or whatever it is you're working on. And I also understand that you might be working full-time elsewhere, or parenting or caring, and you really only have this very small chunk of time to work, so you want to work on your project that is important to you. But what I would say is that I think it's really, really... Oh, God, this is 3 minutes already. This isn't going to be fast. I think it's really, really useful to switch over to another project, because I think very often we can feel that we're really struggling, that we can't write on a particular... Let's say it's a play, just, but we've got this idea for another play or a TV series or something that we had a while ago that... Actually, let me spend the morning on that instead. And let's see if some creative thinking around that and giving the brain a break from this other thing might help to kind of free us up a little bit, keep us moving. So, quite often when I'm feeling blocked, I write poetry, and I'm not experienced at doing that, really. I don't particularly think... I can't say my poems aren't good. I've got to give myself that. I've got to have confidence in myself. Anyway, whatever. I'm not a poet. But whenever I change over from writing plays, TV usually, to poetry, I find this different flow and this, different forms ask different things of you. Try writing a piece of flash fiction, write a short story, a poem, a description of something. In the same way, within the project you're working on, let's say it's a play again, you're stuck on this particular scene. Take a character out, write it as a monologue from that character's point of view, thought track the characters, work out what's going on in their head, So it's just kind of changing it up and also proving to yourself that you can still write. Like, it's not over, it's not done. And I think that the most important tool, such an important tool for writers, I would say the most important tool that I've used over the years, is morning pages, which is from Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. And it is an exercise where you wake up in the morning and first thing before you do anything else, you write 4 pages of freehand A4, whatever comes into your mind. Try not to let the pen leave the page. Don't judge. It could be the same word over and over again. It could be gobbledygook. It could be whatever, just your mundane worries. But the idea is you're sort of doing an act of unblocking, of warming up the brain and getting rid of the sort of petty worries of the day. Again, morning pages doesn't work for everyone. I've got a son. There's no way I'm going to get up and write 4 pages of freehand. I tend to do it at the beginning of my working day, and I tend to do it rather than writing 4 pages of A4. I set myself a timer for 10 minutes. So you make it work for you. I call it daily pages, and I don't do it daily, but I use it as a tool, and it's wonderful for so do a bit. You can absolutely look up morning pages, Julia Cameron, read the book indeed, but also there's lots of information about morning pages out there, and I think it's really useful. And my third tip is to change your environment. So I tend to work in my little shed at the end of the garden, but I also work in my house. I work in coffee shops a lot. I work in the library. This is a real no-brainer for a lot of people, but if you feel a change of environment can make all the difference. Of course, also go for a walk, get out, clear your head, see other people, be in different environments. It's really, really super useful thing to do. So that's one of the first things that you can do when you think, I feel I'm struggling, I can't write, I'm blocked. If you are indeed still saying you're blocked. My third point is change your tools. And I think this is a really, really important one, right? So most of us, I'm generalizing here, but most of us tend to write on a computer or a laptop, which is also the site of many, many different distractions and all sorts of different possibilities. The internet, email, I don't need to tell you what's on a computer, but so sometimes just making that very, very basic change from computer to notebook really helps me. I have to use this is a Remarkable, which was insane money. I bought it when I was having a really bad time mental health wise, and I think I had this awareness that I just wanted to make a big purchase. I don't think I'd have done it if I wasn't struggling with my mental health, but then now I'm quite glad that I did. So that's just a digital notebook, so everything gets saved, because I can't keep real notebooks because I lose them too much, but maybe a real notebook works for you. Whiteboards, I'm clearly very creative at the moment, but whiteboards can be really, really useful. A really big one is your phone voice recorder. There's something about changing how you are putting words together that is so powerful, and also removing the effort, even though it's only typing, removing the effort from your arms is really useful. And of course, changing your tools can go hand in hand with changing your environment. Go for a walk in the forest, go for a walk on a high street, whatever, speak into your phone, come back, listen and type it up. And actually, there's such a great element of editing that goes on there. I think it's really, really useful. So change your environment. Number 4, stop thinking so much. It sounds like an odd thing to say, but what I mean is, so often we need to rely on the subconscious brain to kind of solve problems for us a little bit. So by all means, dig in. Like if you've got a scene you're trying to solve or you don't know where to go with the story, by all means, dig in. Write notes, write in a stream of consciousness, try again. But eventually it may be the most beneficial and powerful thing to do to step away. Now, I think I always really mess up this story when I tell it. I'm going to tell it in the most basic of terms because I don't want to get it wrong, and I meant to look it up beforehand. But I remember reading an article about Maya Angelou's writing. I love reading about other writers' like daily routines, and Morgan Lloyd Malcolm's doing a brilliant Substack at the moment, which is lots of different writers' daily routines, and I really love it. I really kind of hoover that stuff up. But her day was I hope I get it right, that she hired a hotel room in her town, in the town that she lived in, and she went there every morning. And every morning she wrote sort of intensely for 2 or 3, maybe more hours, worked intensely, and then she played solitaire for the afternoon. And then she went back home and then did the same, and that was her daily routine. And so there was something about the solitaire, about just allowing the brain to focus on a much more sort of basic single layer sort of activity to allow the brain to work. And it's, I mean, I never cease to be amazed that I will be walking around Tesco's and go, oh yeah, that's it. And I always think that's bullshit. Those things don't really happen, but I think they do. So how can you find active rest for your brain? I mean, God, like chopping vegetables. I know it's an old one, but gardening, like walking, parenting, socializing, whatever it is, giving your brain that space and time away is very often the work is going to be sort of done in the background, and that's so exciting. Similarly to like getting really into what you're doing before you go to bed, and then go to bed and wake up in the morning and you may well have solved a lot of it. So stop thinking so much. Number 5 is have a creative conversation, and creative conversations are gold. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was working on a play, and it was a big play, and I was in trouble. I felt I was in too deep. And I had a private little workshop just for me with some actors that weren't connected with the play. Like I employed them all, but they weren't connected with the play. I needed some privacy because the play was programmed, but I needed some privacy. I needed some time. But I remember by the day, it was the day of the workshop, and I said to my friend in the morning, I'm so embarrassed at the shape it's in. I think we're just going to read it. I'm going to hear it aloud, and then I'm going to send them home. And he was like, this is Chris Urch, my playwright and screenwriter friend, who's absolutely brilliant. And he was like, no, like talk to the actors, like send them away for lunch, then let them come back talk. And I said, I can't do it, Chris. I feel so raw and so embarrassed about the shape of the play. Anyway, I listened to him, and after we read the play, which wasn't in as bad shape as I thought, but it was pretty wild. We sat and talked all afternoon, and I remember thinking, thank God, like these actors were so compassionate and engaged and involved, and like, but also weren't afraid to sort of tell me when they felt something wasn't working or that something rubbed up against them in the wrong way. And I always remember that because I kind of look at the play now, I think, wonder what that play would have been, or how would I have got round to that? So whether it's actors who've read your work, whether it's another writer, whether it's your mum, whether it's someone, it doesn't need to be someone that's involved in the industry that you're working in. But you know what? Sometimes it'll be about talking to someone about a project and them asking you questions about it. Sometimes it's not even about that. Sometimes it's about you having to articulate out loud what the problem is, or what your play's about, or what your film's about, or, you know, and they might ask pertinent questions or they might not. And you can be open with them about what you need. You know, I'm not looking for notes on this, or I just want you to kind of hear me out and ask if you didn't understand anything. I just want you to see if you've got clarity of what the story is. Or do you have any ideas about how I can solve this, which is also great. And, you know, you can do the same for them if they are people that are writing creatively or whatever. I don't, like, full disclosure, I don't do this enough. I'm guarded and nervous and feel vulnerable, and I need to do it more. It would solve a lot of problems in my life. And did I have a last one? 6. It sort of encapsulates a lot of what I've talked about, and I think this is a good tip for writing as well. Look for novelty, look for limitation. Novelty, I'm talking about, like, you know, we've talked about changing up your environment, changing up your tools. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. That old saying. Like, what's new? What can you do that's new that just makes you feel a little bit different? And limitation refers to timing. So, for example, I will often say, right, I'm setting myself Pomodoro technique, Google that if you haven't heard of it. It's great. 25 minutes of intense work and then 5 minutes break and then the same again and again and again. Or I might say, I'm going to write for 3 minutes. I'm going to spend 3 minutes writing this scene or 10 minutes writing this scene. And whatever I get down, that's just my first draft. I can then work, I can edit. But I'm setting myself these timing limitations. Something I say to myself a lot is, I did English A-level. I did a 3-hour exam in my English A-level. It was really fucking hard, and I sat at that desk and I wrote for 3 hours. And I've since set up the same limitations for myself as a writer. You're going to write for 3 hours. You did it when you were 16, 18. You can do it now. I'm not sure I can do it as well now, but like when I talk about novelty and limitation, for example, it might be, you know, I might step out, go down to the bus stop, jump on a bus that goes to Stratford. I know it takes about 45 minutes to get to Stratford. I'll sit there with my notebook and I'll write the whole way. I'll get off, get on a bus, come back. I'll write the whole way. I've got limitations of time then because I'm only going to write when I'm on the bus. It's a novelty because I'm on a fucking bus. I haven't done this, but I might. So look for novelty and limitation, because also apart from anything, let's have like some fun. And like the last thing I just wanted to say about it is that I say to writers often, stop trying to write a good play. Stop trying to write a good film or a good TV show or treatment or whatever. Like, it goes without saying that you want to write something good, because only a person not in their right mind would set out to write something that wasn't good. Or maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm being naive. What I mean is that I don't believe as writers it's in our hands whether it's good or not, because of course it's subjective, and one thing that's good for someone isn't going to be good for someone else. The only thing we can attempt to do is write with truth, right? We can write truthfully from our perspective, which encapsulates everything that we know about the world and everything we've experienced. That doesn't mean that it has to be about our own experience or it has to be something we've experienced, but we bring the unique perspective of ourselves to a situation. If you write with truth, that's the best way to attempt to write something good. So I think, and also we try to find, very often with plays I find this, it's got to be the right ending. Like, what is the right ending? As though there's only one out there. And like, I think it really helps when you sort of go, there's not one right ending. There's like infinite different endings. And I'm going to reach around, I'm going to, in the dark, I'm going to find one. I'm going to find one that feels right to me, that feels good, but it's not going to be the right ending and there's only one. And it might change from day to day. It would change depending on what you've experienced. It would change depending on what's going on in the world. I think when you realise that there's infinite endings for every story, there's infinite ways that we could go, ways that characters could react to everything, it's really freeing. And then it's just up to us to find the one that talks to us and the one that feels truthful for us. So I think that's it. So 5 ways to smash writer's block. Don't believe in it. Change your project. So 1, don't believe in it. 2, change your project. Maybe change to write a completely different project for a while, or write a different scene within or passage within the thing you're working on. Try morning pages. It's a brilliant, brilliant tool. 3, change your environment. I've done 7, I think. 3, change your environment. 4, change your tools. 5, stop thinking so much. 6, have a creative conversation. And 7, novelty and limitation. And then I talked about stop trying to find the right path and stop trying to write a good piece of writing. Just under 20 minutes. I'm sure no one's made it to this point. All right, I hope that's helpful.